It's pretty funky.
Okay, welcome everyone to our municipal council meeting for April 15th, 2025. We have a full house with us here tonight. We also have Madam Mayor who's joining us online. And I would just a couple of quick things before we open. Just ask those in attendance, make sure that your phones are off, just to limit interruptions. I'd also just like to respectfully ask that we respect our protocol that we have at our council meetings. You're here as observers and we appreciate you being here. We don't have any delegations or any speaking rules for anyone, so please take that into account. We appreciate you being here and we appreciate that you respect the protocol that we have here at our council meetings. I would like to first go to our land acknowledgement and turn to Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councillor Resto. Je souhaite prendre un moment pour souligner l'importance du territoire sur lequel nous sommes rassemblés. La municipalité de West-Nipissing reconnaît avec respect que nous sommes réunis sur les terres ancestrales du peuple Anishinaabe, sur les territoires traditionnels des Premières Nations Nipissing, Temagami et Daucus, désignés par le traité Robinson-Huron. Nous honorons leurs liens historiques avec le territoire et nous valorisons leur contribution considérable au façonnement et au renforcement de nos communautés. Ce faisant, nous réaffirmons notre engagement et notre responsabilité envers la réconciliation et l'amélioration de notre compréhension des peuples autochtones, locaux et de leur culture.
We just, there's rooms, there's some chairs available in front there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pellerin. We would like to, we'll first do a declaration of pecuniary interest for any of the items that we have on the agenda.
I have Mr. Restol, Councillor Restol. I have a conflict of interest under planning 6.21. I've filled out the paperwork with the clerk.
Thanks for making aware of that. Yeah, and just this actually speaks to that agenda item under planning 6.2.1. I'm going to propose that we amend our agenda slightly to have that issue dealt with first. I see that we have a couple of young people with us this evening, and just to respect their time and not having to sit through some other issues, we'll put that issue first as the agenda item, and then we'll continue on with the other items as we have listed within our agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the agenda for the Council and Committee of the whole meeting held on April 15th, 2025 be adopted as amended.
Questions or comments on that? All those in favor? Carried.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Rivard. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-35, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45 to rezone certain lands located at 734 Nipissing Street from rural residential to rural residential exception zone 5, holding zone 3, RR5H3, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
So we'll open that item up for any questions or comments from members of council. I'm not sure if I want to go, or not sure if I should word that right. Maybe our chair of planning might want to share any info on that, or any staff.
Well, I don't have anything else to add, but I can definitely open it up. Samantha, if you have anything, or Ms. Willett, if you want to add anything to this information.
Yes. So through you, this is a zoning amendment application that was received a little bit ago. It came to PAC originally in November. The application was since revised and brought back to our meeting last week at PAC. The planning report that was provided with the PAC agenda is provided in your agenda for your review, as well as any letters that were received from the public. So all the information is there if anyone has any questions.
Appreciate that. Open the floor for any questions or comments. Councilor Pellerin?
Thank you, Councillor. I'm just, I used to be on the planning board, but not at this end. Is it normal to ask for holding? Like I understand that. L'ouvrage qu'il faut que ça se fait, qu'un hydrological survey for the water. If it doesn't come back negative, the project stops. If it comes back positive, it goes ahead. But to my understanding in the past, I guess they just had to go back to Samantha, and yes, it's good, we're good to go. In this instance, they'd have to come back to us to remove the holding on it. I'm just.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it isn't normal. I haven't seen it either, but it is a tool or a mechanism that could be used. And I'll try and explain it in lay people's terms here. So at the Planning Advisory Committee, it was voted in favor to recommend to council to approve the rezoning and conditional upon the hydrogeological. Since then, so if we were to wait for the hydrogeological to come back, we could have waited when that came back and then brought that to council, which would have been the normal way. If you would approve it tonight without the holding zone, my understanding is that there wouldn't be a requirement to actually conduct the hydrogeological survey. And so the reason it was brought sooner than later is there was some discussion by certain members of the Planning Advisory Committee that they may, or they weren't too sure about how they were going to vote. So out of fairness to the proponent, speaking with the planner, the mechanism that was put into play was so that we can bring this early so that the proponent does not go and spend money for no reason and then have it voted down at council later on. And so that's why. So if you would have voted it without a holding zone tonight, there was no requirement for the proponent to actually do the survey or the hydrogeological survey. So this is a way of ensuring in the law that it happens. That's my understanding of it, Madam Planner.
Yes, thank you. So yes, essentially it's a stick so that they do it, because if it was to be taken through without that, just as like the rural residential exception zone 5, then that zoning's in place. So this allows us to have a mechanism that requires them to do that while still allowing them to bring it to council for that decision at this time.
So this is a way of honoring the Planning Advisory Committee, bringing it a little bit sooner so that should council not support the decision of the Planning Advisory Committee, and the Planning Advisory Committee is exactly that, advisory. It's ratified here at this table by yourselves, and so out of respect for the proponent, we just wanted to ensure that it was done expeditiously, so that it wasn't going to be, so that they weren't going to go and retain a consultant to do that. I hope that answers your question, Councillor Pellerin.
So much. To me, again, being on the board before, the planning board agreed to put this forward. with the conditions of the water thing.
Yeah, but the planning board has no authority. It's not a board, it's a committee. So it has
Yes.
changed since you were on there.
Okay, and then if, let's say, there's something different in the application, it comes out in a negative or whatever, then if it would go back to the planning board, the proponent has a way to deal with the municipality. If it stays here, if we take the final decision, then they can't address the matter. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'd rather, it seems like, I think it should go back to the planning
Mhm.
and make sure everything is lined up and they have a way to,
Right. So, again, I understand what you're saying, and you're correct in the sense that if you make a decision here and you pass a resolution or a bylaw for the zoning amendment with a holding zone and it comes back in the negative, then there aren't any adjustments and it's dead at that point. I understand that, but again, if the vote would be in the negative, then they wouldn't be going to spend money. If the council's intention is to allow this to go forward, you wish to go and have it come back to the planning committee, for whatever reason, you would be proposing a referral back. So you can propose a referral right now, Councillor Pellery, if it's supported for those reasons and it's voted on now, then the conversation is over here and it would go back to the planning committee.
it just seems like I heard support of it for going back.
Okay, go to, thank you for that, Councilor Pellerin, and Madam Mayor. I think you're still on.
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to find the mute button there. I'd just like to say that I sit on the Planning Advisory Committee. The meeting was held last Tuesday, and there was significant discussion on this application and significant concerns that were raised throughout by all members. It was a very close vote at 2-3 with me voting in the affirmative. And, you know, I do still have some reservations about the application as a whole. And I think, you know, it was my reservations that had prompted staff to add the holding zone because, you know, from a planning perspective, I think that there are still some kind of issues around the file from, you know, a community perspective and wanting to support a business owner that's providing a really great service for kids. You know, it was a really kind of difficult deliberation to make, and all members of the Planning Advisory Committee, and that meeting is available online, had concerns on the scope and different areas of the development, and the application really does ask for several exceptions to several different parts of either the zoning bylaw or the official plan, and so there were some concerns, and so I'm you know I'm still a little on the fence as to whether this is an appropriate development for that area, and you know, that's why the holding zone was placed, is that there would be some discussion at council. I know that council has read the planning reports. I had suggested to members of council that it would be in their best interest to watch the planning advisory committees so that they could see both the discussion from committee members and the presentations from members of the public. And so I just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Comments, Councillor St.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start off by saying I, for myself, voted against it last week. But my only concern, and wasn't even the water, because I knew that they would do their due diligence and get in the hydro G. One of my concerns was the 2 apartments on top. That was something that, for me, was hard to, understand, and the height and so on. My son did the karate, and it's a fantastic thing. I'm not opposed to the location and whatnot, but I still have reservations on the size of the building and the way it would happen. I would personally like to refer it back to planning, to give an opportunity to the proponent to provide us with additional details or provide us, and I know it's not fun for the individuals with the contractors, it's that time of the year where people want to start to build and stuff like that. But I just want to make sure that we do the right thing and that we're able to do it and to move forward with the right process so that he can have the right studio there and that the kids are able to enjoy it and that we can, they can maybe bring something back to planning that will satisfy everybody. That's just my thoughts.
Thank you for those, Councillor St. Louis. Any other comments from any other members of council?
So, Mr. Chair, what I would suggest is you seem to have, from a procedural perspective, a motion to refer back. And so I think that once you have a motion to refer back, that needs to be dealt with before any comments on the file are happened. And so if there are reasons that were provided for referral, then that's a vote that council would take prior to having a discussion on the file.
Thank you for that clarification. So we did have a couple of council members comment on referring back to the planning committee.
Well, we have Councillor St. Louis who's moved it. I will need a second in the motion. Councillor Gagne.
So we have a mover and a seconder on the referral back committee. So the vote on that now. So
There's discussion on the referral itself.
So any comments on the referral that's before us? Councillor Feta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, can I ask Councillor St. Louis, can you, because I didn't, what would referring it back achieve exactly? I'm not sure that I understood that correctly.
For me to refer it back to the planning, I want to give the individuals an opportunity to hear what the concerns were. My concern is we had a meeting last Tuesday and it's here now. And maybe at that meeting, they had a change of hearts and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go with a regular studio. I'm not going to put the apartments, or I'm only going to put one. But they never had that opportunity to come to planning and say, hey, here's our changes. Hey, here's our thought. So I want, and they might not, I don't know. I didn't speak to any of them, but they might not, but I want to give them that opportunity because we had a meeting on it and we're making a decision right now. I want to give them that chance to either change it to try to make it so that we can accommodate them or go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Well, I was just going to add to that explanation. If council votes on this now and the motion fails, then the application is dead in the water and the proponent would have to start from scratch. And so Councillor St. Louis' motion just gives the opportunity to see whether we can get to a place where all parties are happy. Whereas if it votes and it fails now, then it's dead. And this gives the proposal some life left to try to get to common ground. Thank
Any
you.
other comments around the? Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Pavilion.
Oui, encore pour écouter M. Saint-Louis. Aussi la même chose, parce que je vois un paquet de jeunes dans l'audience que je pensais jamais que le chose de karaté était si populaire, puis je veux faire sûr que on fait la bonne chose, puis j'aimerais ça voir ce projet-là de l'avant. Merci.
Okay. So on the referral, all those in favor to refer it back to committee? That's passed. Thank you. Yeah, so for those, like I mentioned, we did it quick, early. For those who are here for that issue, if you'd like to take a moment, if you want to enjoy the rest of your evening, you're welcome to stay if you'd like to stay as well. But you can give a moment or two for those who would like to move on.
Everyone, good night. Keep it aboard. Appreciate it.
Okay, so our large crowd is thinned out a little bit, but we still have a lot of work to do this evening. We're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is the Committee of the Whole. And we have our Community Services Committee with an agenda item. I'll turn the floor over to Councillor Rebar.
Chair, we have one item tonight, 5.1.1, and I'll just pass it over to Mr. Poulet.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. A memo to council was provided earlier today. Apologize for the lateness on that. We did have to clarify the request being made for council's direction and approval. There's actually two requests being made. So the Sturgeon Falls, Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach Group, who have been instrumental in helping the community make a lot of improvements at our Sturgeon Falls Beach, are now requesting council's approval and support to name a pavilion that was built in 2024. If you recall, council did provide an approval. We had a member of our community, Monsieur Michel Deschâtelet, also owner of Leisure Farms, offered generously to pay for and build the pavilion at the Sturgeon Falls Beach. A photo of the pavilion is provided to council for reference. Monsieur Deschâtelet has invested in that structure $35,000 of his own money. The Sturgeon Falls, Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach Group are requesting that the pavilion be named Le Pavilion Leisure Farm Pavilion, and that two signs be placed on the structure in recognition. And the group is also requesting to install a plaque on site to recognize Monsieur Deschâtelet and his family for the contribution made. In addition, just I didn't note that in my memo, but the Sturgeon Falls Friends of the Beach Group are also have done some fundraising. They will pay for all the signs and the plaque, and they're also donating some tables to be placed underneath the pavilion. Council or the municipality does have an asset naming bylaw. I believe a copy has been provided to council. Section 3.1.4 of the bylaw, it is staff's opinion that this type of naming of a municipal asset would in fact meet the criteria of this bylaw. So along with naming the pavilion, putting a plaque on site, the committee paying all the costs of the signs, the municipality will be responsible to install the plaque and the signs at minimal cost. And we are seeking council's direction and approval to this request by the group.
Thank you, Mr. Poulet, for that information. I'll open the floor to any comments or questions. Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. First of all, I would like to just take an opportunity to thank all of the volunteers from the Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach for the work they did in coordinating this, and thank Mr. Dechalet, his family, and Leisure Farms for the contribution in building a beautiful asset for our residents to enjoy. I would actually propose that perhaps, given the contribution that both those groups have already made in improving a municipally owned asset, that council consider using some of the funds out of our discretionary grant line to offset the cost of the signs for the Sturgeon Falls, Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach group, and whether that would be a set amount or whether it would be covering it. I think it would be a nice way to contribute to the project as a municipality, and the funds that they have raised, I'm sure they already have a next project or a next goal in mind, and the funds they wouldn't spend on the sign is could go towards whatever their next big plans are to make it a great place for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Pavilion.
Yeah, it's a yes for me. I agree with the project. Thank you.
Councilor Gagné.
Thank you, Conseiller Livard. I also agree. J'aimerais remercier M. Paul Paiement qui a spearheadé le projet. Alors, merci beaucoup, M. Paul Paiement, pour ceci. Beau travail. Et puis, beau travail au niveau d'être un volontaire pour Friends on the Beach aussi et tous les autres gens qui ont aidé dans cette chose-là. And I agree with Madam Mayor. We can take money from the discretionary fund to actually pay for the signs, and Friends on the Beach can use those funds for other means or other special programs. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So that's about it. Oh, Councilor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also support this project. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, so you guys pretty much said everything I would say. So, but looking from what I'm hearing, it sounds like we're all in agreement with the proposal here. But I guess we could put to a vote Madam Mayor's proposition, or that kind of seems like it's approved as well.
I think that anything like that would be ratified by resolution at the next meeting.
Oh,
So we will frame the resolution to honor the wish of council at this meeting.
I kind of had an idea. Sorry, Madam Mayor. When you mentioned the sign and helping with the cost, like I wonder. I know Mr. Paman's here and his group's maybe not here, but wouldn't it be nice as well if we had some sort of like a Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach sign in that area as well, you know, just to kind of honor the people who are putting in the good work at the same time, right? Like, or, oh, I got a bad face there, so maybe that idea wasn't the best. Yeah, we'll leave that. Okay, sounds good. But Madam Mayor, you raise your hand?
Yeah, I would just want to have clarification from council before it comes back as resolution whether, well, we don't know what the costs of the signs are, so we don't know exactly how much we're approving or whether there's a set amount that we would like to contribute towards the signs. So I just want that clarified so that when the resolution comes back next meeting, it is clear as to what we're voting on.
Thanks. Got someone in the back there just mentioned that it's probably around $1,000 for the two signs.
We'll confirm.
Will confirm, but doesn't seem too bad. Councilor Restal?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to share that I think it's a great idea that's being proposed, and looking a little bit further down our agenda, we have a proclamation for Volunteer Appreciation Week. So I think it's a good gesture at the same time that we as a municipality support and save some of the fundraising that's been done by this group for other initiatives within the community. So appreciate the suggestion, and it looks like the support from council is going to come for that with the signs.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'll just pass right back over to you. We're done with community services, and thank you, Monsieur Paman, one of the Sturgeon Falls Friends of the Sturgeon Falls Beach.
So thank you, Councillor Rivard. Our other committee that we have is our Environmental Services Committee this evening, and that would be Councillor Nicol. We'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 5.3.1, there is a detailed memo from Ms. Henning regarding potentially expanding the curbside pickup to the Kipling and River Valleys areas. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
There's nothing that I'd like to add to this, so if anyone has any questions.
Comments? We'll open the floor up. Larrabee?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, people are kind of curious of the prices that would cost if we had curbside pickup. And the service, would we still have access to the dump, even though they do have a curbside pickup? Because I know in town here, I used to sit on the environmental committee, and it's not the same method as the ones that do have curbside to the ones that don't. So I'd like to have that clarified, the prices start with.
So through you, Madam Chair, I will leave Ms. Craddock to discuss the prices for this one.
And actually, Councillor Larrabee, we kind of did the reverse order. We're going to have the whole solid waste budget in a moment, and I can talk to, when we present the budget, the difference between what the rates would be choice A versus choice B. So if we can just put that with the budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as far as like the use of the landfill, the intention is not to close the landfill. It's still valuable landfill space. However, it would run more like the Sturgeon landfill where, I mean, there'd be no reason to take your household garbage to the landfill every week. It'd be the game to be your curb, and then the landfill would operate for, example, when people are getting rid of doing renos or whatever you're doing to get rid of larger amounts of garbage and you're taking to the landfill at that time. That's how it runs. So similar to what the residents were accessing the Sturgeon landfill.
Okay, so that would mean, like here, they open it once a month on a Saturday or something for free access to the dump. If you have a couch or a mattress that the regular truck does not pick up, you can go to the dump, and it's once a month, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and the landfill in West Nipissing is open, like the Sturgeon landfill is open every day.
Every day.
Yes.
But that would
There's
be
only
the
one
case.
free Saturday per month, but it's every day for people who want to bring things.
So to put a finer point on it, the intention is not to change any of the landfills that are affected by curbside pickup, other than, which is a good thing, if you have door-to-door pickup, then there might be more of a screening of household waste. So if you're, let's say, I'm going to use Kipling, which is part of it, but let's say Kipling's open on a Saturday, if it's door-to-door in Kipling, you would see a lot less traffic and a lot less usage of the dump. And so you would be receiving, stuff that you're throwing out in your garage and stuff like that you normally do, right? And so that's the issue that we're looking at. So the issue is to expand door-to-door pickup, and there are a lot of reasons for that. There are a lot of changes that should be made based on a variety of reports that were provided with respect to how we manage our landfills in the outlying areas. And as the memo indicates as well, that the recycling that is currently done, I'll use River Valley as an example. There will no longer be after January 1 the ability for residents of River Valley to go and provide and to put their recycling at the dump. And so this provides a mechanism as well for them to still have recycling services, because the law says that they will be providing recycling services where they pick up door to door. So it's an added value. So unfortunately, it's a choice of council, but it's also being gently nudged along by the province as well because of the recycling component of it. I don't know if that helps, but that's a major reason why we're looking at it.
Very well explained. I did understand it.
Thanks.
But yeah, okay. With this being said, I know we're going to go through the budget after, but would there be time? Do we vote on this moving forward today, or could we have time? I'd like to have time to go and explain to the Kipling and in River Valley some changes. That's why I need to have the prices and Because right now, the word that I'm getting is the ones that are working are really happy with the system because they have garbage pickup. Some of them are not working and kind of on the opposite side of the fence, so, yeah.
Right. Obviously, this is at the committee level for discussion presentation and so that you're receiving information and forming an opinion. But that any decision at the committee level would need to be ratified by a resolution as for, which confirms Ms. Craddock's, because you're missing a piece. You're missing the financial piece.
Yeah.
And so for you to have a full understanding of what the implications are, Ms. Craddock will be presenting in the budget submissions that as well. Then you'll have both pieces, and then there'll be some discussion with respect to moving forward.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you. I think for me, the questions in regards to the financial piece are not necessarily the overall budget, but what the cost per household is. So currently houses that receive curbside pickup in Sturgeon Falls, Crystal Falls, wherever, our garbage is charged on a separate line item on our tax bills. It's not under the regular tax. And then people who have dump access are charged a different amount. So what is the difference between the per household cost of curbside pickup? So say a house in Sturgeon Falls as opposed to the waste management line on a property that has dump access only.
So we can provide, Elisa can provide that answer, but you also need to be aware that if there is an expansion of service and costing or revenues increase there, it also lowers the entire amount everywhere else. And so it's not, it isn't that they automatically jump to the higher rate. A higher rate actually gets reduced as well if that service is spread out further with more residents, right? So I don't know, and we haven't rehearsed. But Ms. Craddock, I knew that when I looked at the memo before council that those questions would come up. And so if we have an idea and we want to talk about it now, it's probably a better time to look at it per household right now if you have it, or do you?
I do. But again, this assumes that the budget that we're about to talk about in a moment and the budget that's in front of you on the next one does not include the expansion. But this assumes that budget is solid and you like everything and all that goes. So with the budget that's in front of you that we're going to discuss shortly, because the expenses decrease, and the expenses are decreasing more on curbside than they are on landfill, the rates for that budget in front of you for curbside collection is going to go to $250 and the landfill access is $160. Now, as Mr. Barbeau said, if we take on, even though it's an additional 60,000, we get additional revenue and we do the shuffling around and we've got more households to spread it over. So then the curbside rate actually comes down to $241 and the landfill access goes up by about $4. Instead it goes up to like $164 because we've just reallocated those people from those households from one chunk to another.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Fran, you've been waiting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not clear on the costs. So first of all, can I take a step back? The 60,000, is this what we were anticipating to save, given that we would no longer have to do recycling collection? And these assets, this asset, and we have staff now that are available or could be available to be redeployed into collecting waste from River Valley. Am I understanding this correctly?
Mostly, yeah. It's actually substantially more savings than just that 60,000. The 60,000 is adding back in the employees, as you said, that would now be available to do that, and we've got the asset already there. We've got this truck that can be redeployed. And so, yes, that's just, we don't have to acquire a truck. That's just the cost of operating the truck and the cost of those staff for half the year on those runs.
But we now start collecting waste from households that did not have waste collected. Are we not going to earn more with the levy on these households? So is that included in the costs already? Is that factored in?
That's why if we go with this rate, that's why the curbside cost per household is actually going to decline because we've got more revenues connected with it. And so it becomes that balancing. So yes, it is included in there. Yeah.
Okay. And did we consider, for example, Levine as a possibility? And how many households would there be in Levine?
At this point, we were just looking at these areas because we're already in field. So we wanted to see if council had an appetite to expand here, and then expanding further is something that we could certainly look at in the future.
And how many households would there be in Levine if we did consider Levine?
Madam Chair, Councillor Fadin was gracious enough to ask me that question, and I was gracious enough to think of what is Levine. For me, Levine is a certain distance from the tavern. Some it's a certain distance from the church. It depends on who you are. So what is Levine? It was a little bit more difficult in a very quick time to say how many households. But I will tell you that there are, I think, 900 households in Ward 8. You know, so in what is being presently served by a present contractor for the North Manettville portion of it, I would suggest to you is around, I'm just going to guess here, around 200 to 250. And so you're looking at, if you consider Levine, which, might go from the Narrows, on, right up until, Pramnedjudak or at Nidjudak, sorry. So you'd be looking at around about 600 households. And that is a very quick guess, Councillor Fadin, for
That's enough. But I'm wondering whether we haven't looked at other possibilities, like maybe doing both Levine and River Valley, but instead of doing it once a week, we do it once every 2 weeks. And I think people would prefer waste collection every 2 weeks than none at all.
No, so that's a point that we can go back and have a look at. Frankly, we're kind of hustling with where we currently collect and what we can do with the runs we have. And so where we are able to deploy. But certainly prior to any decision, we can go and have a quick look. That's a very valid point on, splitting, the collection. Then it also raises the issue with respect to the cost and adding a new pricing structure to it because it's a different level of service. So, but certainly if so requested, we'd have to do it very quickly because some of those decisions we do have to make. I guess we have until the end of this year to make them.
Correct. So, we were looking at if we do something now that we're actually going to do a transition on July and we can capture it all with the billing this year, but it doesn't stop council from adding other layers throughout the year before we get to January 1 and implementing stuff at later times. As Ms. Henning said, this was kind of adjacent to an area that WNES already collects at. We do have other contractors, and then it becomes if we're going to start to look to some of those south areas, and I think that looking at the areas is a good plan. Looking at curbside collection is a good solution for the future recycling, but just whether we want to extend WNES, whether we want to look at the contractors that are there, whether we want to look at packaging the whole thing, it becomes a lot. So we were trying to put it into small bites for council because it's going to become an elephant. Yeah.
So directed, we can come back with certain permutations and combinations of what you have. It hasn't been done because it's not quite that simple, but certainly we can come back with some options.
Yeah, I would like to see a range of options rather than just kind of like saying yes or no to the first one that's presented to us. And just one more quick question, if I may. Has this been discussed at the WNES board? Is this a matter for the board to discuss?
I think levels of service isn't. I think they're a contractor that we tell them what to do, kind of thing. Sorry, but they are basically a contractor for us, and they provide the level of service that council directs them to do. And so, in that vein, we're working on behalf of the municipality right now to basically look at how that happens. And it certainly impacts the operations of WNES. So say council decides, no, we want to take all of the savings and we're not interested in that, and recycling will figure that out down the line, then there's cost savings to the municipality right now that are borne, and then there's some adjustments that West Nipissing Environmental Services need to make.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nichols. Just one question and a comment. The expansion involves the town of River and some rural roads, or just the town?
There's some rural roads as well.
Okay.
It's kind of the areas surrounding there and Kipling.
Okay. I'm just surprised that the cost would come down on an average because of it's a lot more time consuming from Sturgeon going to River, and especially the side roads. So I'm just surprised that the average cost would come down.
The large part, another thing to consider is we already have the truck. So there's no large vehicle purchase here, right? We have the truck, we're currently using it for recycling. So this would give us the opportunity to redeploy that asset.
But you know what I mean? Like, we're picking up in Sturgeon, we're close to the dump. So you got to
We're
right to
also
River.
picking up in Crystal Falls and in Field. So we're going all the way out there now, so we're not too far in our expansion.
Oh, we're picking up in Field right now?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And at the price of running trucks and employees, I'm just amazed on how close the two prices are. There's $81 difference between a person that goes every week to the dump with their own vehicle compared to one that, like it doesn't, to me, it doesn't have, there should be a bigger difference because taking your own vehicle and your cost and everything else compared to employees and WSIB and all of that. Anyways, with that being said, one question that I had that Councilor Pellerin made, there's a lot of outskirts houses in the outskirts of River Valley. If you answered it, they're all going to be hit.
Yeah, I believe that most of them would be on the routes. Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess that's about it for my. Like I said, I'm just amazed, but I'm happy that it's not as high, but still.
So the reason is if you're comparing remote areas with landfill access only versus the garbage collection and all of the services, one of the big reasons is because the majority of the revenue is collected every 60 feet. And so that's where that makes the difference less. If we were actually comparing apples to apples and they were only collecting in the rural area, your point would be valid.
Mm.
But because we're doing an urban area, that allows us to, that's where the money is, right? So.
A follow up to this to start. So the recycling, we don't know where that's going right now. It's going to be it's going to be the contractors or the manufacturers that's supposed to be taking care. Will there be a fee over and above for them to come and pick up?
No, we're officially out of the recycling business effective July 1st. And the agreement is that we're keeping the existing levels of service, more or less, but pretty much more, to January 1. Then as of January 1, the ability to have some of those central depots or going to the landfill sites to put your recycling will no longer be available by the provider, and that's provincial-wide.
Okay. Because right now we're asking for $81 more on the tax bill than what 160, so it's going to be 241. And hopefully there's no charge for recycling, because then that would be over and
There
above
isn't.
again.
No, it's
There
no
is
charge for recycling.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to mention, I think it's great that we'd be expanding our service out to these outlying areas. I know personally, I had to go out for about it was a couple of years where once every 2 weeks, because we couldn't do it every week, we'd have to go help an elderly lady bring her garbage to the dump, right? Something like this would give them the opportunity to just put it at their curb and get it picked up and not have to organize or ask, they often felt bad asking me for their help. So I think this is a great thing that we can offer, and it just makes our community a little bit stronger and easier for everyone.
Councillor Pellerin.
Thank you, Councilor Nichols. Just so I'm clear, our municipal dump, whatever, the contractor is gonna go to river and now we have another contractor just for the recycling, right? So they're doing the same runs. If we expand the run in river, they're gonna expand there too, at no extra cost.
Yep, no extra cost. It's all borne by the producers, and that's provincial legislation. So they are required to do that with every municipality in the province of Ontario.
Okay, and we were given a cost by them for a year or per year?
No, we don't pay anything for recycling. As of July 1, we don't have any recycling costs.
So they make enough money with the recycling that they sell somewhere, or?
So the company, if I may, and Ms. Craddock's been taking the lead on it, but basically there was a legislation passed that warned the recycling, the burden of getting recycling to the producers of the material. So the companies that make the boxes, the Amazons, I don't know if the Amazons are part of it, but whatever, the Pepsi, Coke, all of that stuff, they now are forced to pay for getting the recycling in the province of Ontario. So the burden is on them and away from the municipality. They've taken away the burden from the municipalities.
Okay, good, thank you. Now I get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Laramie.
Just one last, and this is only a comment, but it's gonna be, the comments that I'm gonna be getting, and it's true from the resident, is going to the dump on a Sunday. Mind you, before we used to go to church, now it's Saturday, so now we go to the dump and it's a gathering place. It's, so by losing this, it's gonna be a part of the community that, so I could see where some resident will be opposed to it, because it is not a watering hole, but stinky habit. No.
Thank you for you. I remember when this first came to this council a couple of years ago, how the producers were taking over recycling. I had mentioned, why don't we just, if they have to take over everything we're doing, why don't we just expand our recycling business and then they'll have to do it. So now we are being told that they will do that if we expand. Because I remember I brought that up 2 years ago and it was like, no, they will only do what we currently have been doing. But now it seems like they'll do anything. So let's expand the whole way at that point. So I'm really interested to see the further expansion. Because that was my idea at first. If they're going to do it for free, no, it kind of changed, I guess, right? Which is good to hear. I'm happy with that. So thanks.
If there's no other questions or comments, maybe we could decide on River Valley and Kipling and then ask staff to bring back other areas in the future. Everybody deciding that now? Is there a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would prefer if it comes back and we have a range of options to decide on, rather than deciding on River and Kipling as a yes or no now, and then looking at others in the future. I seriously think that we should consider, as I suggested, maybe doing Levine also and just making it less frequent. I'm sure we wouldn't have the resources to do a weekly collection in both, but I would prefer if we at the next meeting, we can have a range of options with a more detail. I want to understand the costs better, and I want to see how the levies factored into that. And so I'd like to see more detailed on the cost itself.
So if I may, just in terms of like timing and manpower for covering these routes, this expansion, because we already are in fields, so this would only take about 2 days of our week to do the runs. So we can certainly look at the future expanding to those other areas, and we would have like the time, and obviously we would have to look at the cost for that. And that's why I'm proposing we can expand, like at this point, we know the cost, so we know how it would work to expand to these areas. And then we can have our time to take a look and look at expanding to the other areas as well. Because I do agree, we should look at everything, but it may be easier to do this in small pieces rather than looking at West Nipissing as a whole.
Who would be in favor of Councillor Ferrand's suggestion?
Excuse me?
Who would be in favor of what Councillor Ferrand suggested?
Seeing a range of options at the next meeting rather than deciding now on River and Kipling.
I'm in favor.
And who would be in favor of deciding on River Valley and Kipling now? Okay. River Valley and Kipling. And then from here,
Yeah, having said that, I think both questions aren't mutually, are kind of mutually exclusive. I think that on behalf of, we will come back to the degree that we're able to do it. Because the sense I'm getting from council is that obviously we want to provide recycling services and minimize that for all residents as well. So if we can get something back to you, certainly I will commit right now that we will come back with some options as well. So obviously it's a good idea for River Valley and Kipling, but I think that other councillors say, yeah, it's a good idea for everywhere, and let's see what the implications are there. So at a minimum, River Valley and Kipling, and then after that, we can have a look at the options that are recommended.
and now we'll move on to item 5.3.2. It's the draft budget solid waste portion, and I'll just give it right to Kelly.
I'll just mess all out here so I can ignore things. Thank you. So you have the draft budget in front of you, and I'm going to do a little bit differently than I've done others, and you'll notice that it kind of just zeros already rather than having a % increase or things like that that you've seen on that you typically see on our budgets. And that's because the rate dropping so much and the expenses dropping so much with the loss of the or the change of the recycling. I'm going to leave the revenue section for a moment. We'll come back to the revenue section, but I'm going to start at the expenditure level there, and we'll roll through that. So increase in salaries and wages comes from a combination of things. There's obviously the regular collective agreement increases. And again, this is our solid waste employees for the municipality, not for WNES. This is the municipal ones. We have a little bit more hours that we added to one of the landfill sites last year. And we've changed the allocation between, so we had a position that we allocated between environmental services and the municipality, and it used to be a 70% WNES, 30% municipal. But as we've taken over these small landfill sites, so that we're not just managing boards, we're actually managing staff and the small landfill sites. And we'll talk a little bit about that. You know, it is part of the reason why the landfill access cost doesn't change as much, do have a lot of costs attached to them, that it's now sort of a 50-50 split on that position. So there's a little bit more HR costs due to how the manager of solid waste is being allocated. Budget and education, but benefits just follow salary. Education, as you can see, there's not been a lot over the last few years. And as you're aware, we've done a lot of transition within our solid waste department very recently. So I've left the education line sort of status quo because I do believe we're going to start to see some investment in education and in our employees in that line. Advertising is just sort of, you'll see that a lot of the small lines, there's very little change in. So the contractors is the large difference. So, and this is sort of with a mid-year split on the change of recycling. So we've got kind of a normal January to end of June, and then July 1st to December 31st, we sort of have this change. And to, you know, Councilor's point, usually WNES does its budget process, puts its budget together and comes to the municipality. Since the municipality hasn't directed WNES as far as what service it wants yet, it's sort of, we need to do this step first this year. However, WNES has given me a price for, this is the service without the expansion to that outside area. This is just the service with the recycling going in July. So in addition to the change in service from WNES on July 1st, we also currently pay GFL for processing our recycling, and that goes away on July 1st as well. And we have a contractor who tows or goes and deals with all of the bins in the rural areas and gets them to and empties them out and brings them back and forth. So that goes away as well as July 1st, because managing the depots also becomes part of the producer responsibility. Insurance is just the insurance, materials and supplies. A large chunk of that, the majority of that is actually cover for the landfill sites. Not for Sturgeon Falls, because that's actually handled through WNES, but it's for all the remaining landfill sites, so that we are actually covering and dealing with the landfill sites appropriately. And the remainder of that would just be sort of, you know, small things that come along, fixing gates, fixing, you know, locks, that type of thing. Office supplies is actually software as well as regular office supplies, a little bit of IT that falls into that. Not a lot of expense in that line. When we roll past 2025 into 2026, some of that software cost may come down as well, because some of the software cost is actually attached to a software that we use for recycling, which again becomes the producer responsibility. Professional fees is our consultant that handles all of the landfill monitoring, our surveys. This is our routine reporting. You'll see in projects that we have some costs that are sort of tied to expansion or tied to special projects. This is just our routine monitoring. We do share the cost actually with WNES. WNES picks up some of the costs for stuff that goes on at the Sturgeon Falls site, but this is the like I said, the professional fees for all that, making sure our landfills stay in compliance for the year. And again, it covers all of our landfill sites. Repairs and maintenance, exactly what they sound like. Services and rents, again, is actually primarily porta potties out at our small sites, plus a little bit of small stuff in there. Hazardous waste, that line is actually what we pay to the City of North Bay for them to handle our hazardous waste. So our residents are able to use the hazardous waste depot in North Bay. When you see the historic, you'll see this really big change in 2024. And our solid waste manager and our director of operations are looking at options so that we can actually potentially handle it at a lesser cost or handle it within our own municipality and potentially get better use and keep that stuff out of our landfill sites. And then telecommunications and utilities is primarily phones. There's a little bit of utilities in there. So when we look at that, we actually see this decrease in expenses. I'm going to flip you back up then to the revenue side of things. So the stewardship revenue is the amount that we used to get from Blue Box, and you'll see it decrease this year, and we're decreasing this year because we only have half a year where we're responsible for Blue Box, and after that it goes back to the producers. And this is actually how they used to try to get the producers to fund Blue Box recycling, is that there was a sort of an agency that was established to collect all the funds from the producers for the cost of their Blue Box material. Each municipality filed every year what their costs had been for residential blue box, not the commercial and all that stuff, but for residential blue box. And then this agency would then collect the funds and distribute it across the municipalities. And it was always a battle, and the producers were always refusing to pay, and they were always tied up, which is why the province changed the legislation. So in theory, the producers have always been paying or were supposed to be paying, and this legislation that transfers everything out to them just sort of ensures that they are paying the cost. Obviously, there is sort of hope that if producers are responsible for the cost and for handling the materials and for dealing with the materials and with whether there's a market for the materials or not, that they might make better choices on the materials they use. That would be the hope as well. But either way, that's where the money used to come in, is through that stewardship line. And you'll see we just have the half year. The miscellaneous income comes from a variety of other things that don't sit under blue box recycling, but it is our steel, our electronic waste, all the scrap metal. There is those sorts of things sit into the miscellaneous income. And as you can see, it's sort of up and down over the years what falls into that. When you look way out in 2021 and 2020, some of that flip is actually a difference between where the stewardship money was located. We did a transition on how they were coded. And so that left, well, what is left is the rate revenue. And so the rate revenue, obviously you see this decrease. So overall, expenses haven't increased. You're just sort of small amounts across across our operating costs. We do have some increased costs in the HR, but the big savings is on the contractors. And you'll recall also over the years, we've been doing this transition from all those landfill boards that used to sit under contractors. So we've been doing that kind of change over the several years to get all the small landfills under sort of municipal control and with municipal employees. And so we've sort of have finished that transition now. And so it was really difficult to kind of look at how we're going to present this with, any type of percent increase, because it was actually sort of an overall savings on the budget. So I've just put in the rate revenue so that we have this zero budget at the end. I didn't give you the rates in this because I'm not sure how council wanted to proceed with the variety of other issues that are going on. And so we gave sort of the where we expect the rates to be. And I'll certainly, when we bring back, now that we've got sort of an approval to go with the River Valley and Kipling, sort of the change in rates, but it is, our small landfills, we have so many of them over such a few number of people, and they have actually higher insurance costs on our outside landfills because we don't have the same monitoring that we have at our larger sites. We have, staffing there. It has really been a change with our small and rural sites, and they are just over such a small group of residents that have them. So it does mean that the costs vary. And we don't do complete, where it's because there are some sort of overhead things that fall into the whole picture. But yes, as we did this, the curbside folks are seeing a bigger savings than the landfill access only folks. And the landfill access only, they are seeing a little bit of a savings actually over last year, because some of those costs were attached to our landfills as well. So some of the recycling costs for processing the recycling was attached to them. The cost for hauling the recycling was attached to the small landfills. It's just, again, just a drop compared to what the savings are on the ones where we've got the curbside pickup, and the landfills that are connected to those areas with curbside pickup. So yeah, we'll see those rates come down on both sides. And again, this is with just sort of the half year of that recycling change. So when we're looking at next year, with the expanded service with River and Kipling, we will have a full year of it, but we're also going to have a full year of savings on the recycling. So next year's going to be a bit of a balancing. Again, it'll be sort of this odd piece till we get it's sort of through the system. And we certainly can sort of bring back the other analysis on the other areas as well. I'm going to jump you back again to the very bottom of the budget part. So the contribution from reserve and the capital expenditures is tied to, you'll see on page 6 of the budget, these special projects. And so the special projects that are tied in 2025 are again just engineering, tied to the expansion of the Sturgeon Falls site, and then tied to specialized work that's going on at the Verner site. Solid waste hasn't historically had dedicated infrastructure reserves. It does have this general reserve. So surpluses run in and out of this general reserve, and we've been using that general reserve to fund these special projects. So that's where that comes from. It is probably one of those things as we look at reserves overall that we should look at how we handle capital reserves and capital expenditures within solid waste. But right now, it will be funded from that general reserve position, which you see just above those special projects on the ending slot. I think I'm done, Madam Chair. Sometimes I get going and I forget, but I'll hand it back to you.
Any questions on any of those items? Councillor Rivard.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. There's two items that I thought were a little, the one was under HR costs, the benefits. When you look down the line, the most was 26,000, the average was about 15, but then this year it's budgeted 41.
So I budget benefits based on, CPP, OMERS, EI, as well as those that have health benefits. However, based on the employees we have, it may vary if people are our employees are sort of are now collecting CPP or not eligible for CPP, and so we have some variety in that. And the other is the health benefits will vary from year to year depending on actual usage by employees. But I budget just based on a kind of per employee number.
Thank you. And then the second, smaller, you mentioned services and rents was mostly porta potties. Would it not be possible to just build an outhouse at some of these locations? Outhouses they typically don't require permits. You just put up a shed with a hole and they're not used very much instead of continuously paying these fees year after year. Is that something that we could look at?
So
It's a shed, essentially.
porta potties are actually for our employees that work there. So that we would then have to also consider, the porta potties are easy to maintain and clean and all that kind of stuff.
And there's some health and safety legislation around them now as well. So we'd have to look at what we can actually provide for our employees. We might not be able to just do an outhouse. We might have to have those porta potties because there is some legislation around them now.
Yeah, just something I'm wondering if it's possible, if it would pay itself off after 2 years.
It's certainly something we can look into.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Ferrin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on the hazardous waste, why didn't we suddenly double the price?
So they came to us at the last year and said this was happening, and then honestly we hadn't seen a significant increase over quite a number of years into that there, but it was just they've got the same increases. They've got the same increases for insurance and staffing and hauling and yeah.
Do we know how much it's used by our own residents? Do we have any data?
The data that I do have from them shows that it does have a very low usage at the moment. It is something we are kind of required to provide. So it's something that I am looking at and we'll be bringing to council some options. We're looking at maybe changing to, doing a hazardous waste day and doing collections here in West Nipissing to see it may cost the same, but if we're getting a higher usage out of everyone having to go to North Bay, that might be a benefit. So that is something that I am looking at and will be bringing to council.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Madam Mayor. You're muted.
There. I was getting there. It's just hard to find the button. Okay, so my first question through you, Madam Chair, is you mentioned that we are now complete with the acquisition of all of our outlaw landfill sites. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yay. Okay, that's great news. Well, because it's something we've been working towards over the last couple of years just to clean up the operations. And I know there was work involved in that on staff's part. So I just wanted to confirm that and then congratulate you for getting that done. I just want to look at the final expenditure lines again. So I'm just trying to be clear on this. What you're presenting here does not include the expansion of curbside pickup that we've just discussed, there is a surplus of 342,000, well, $343,000 dollars, and then for half the year, since we're going to go through with the curbside, there would be a 60,000 increased cost, so that would bring the surplus down to 283. And then next year it would be double, but we'd have more savings. And then what happens to the 283? Like, I'm confused what happens all at the end here if we approve this. And yeah. Is my question clear or no?
Maybe. If my answer answers your question, then it was clear.
Okay.
So yes, so right now we see this decrease in revenue because we've got a savings in expenditures. And so that is correct. If we add back in the additional level of service, we're going to add 60,000 back into expenditures.
Yeah.
So we're going to collect an extra $60,000 in revenue so that we still are zero, which means that the variance year to year is going to be your 280. And so it's not that we're doing anything with that number, because we've already, that means that we've captured the fact that we are charging less out to our residents, that our revenue is lower. And so that's just reflecting how much lower our revenue is.
Okay. And sorry, one more question, if I may, Madam Chair. On the reserves, so what are we adding to the reserves this year, if anything?
So because we just use it as a general reserve and not that dedicated reserve where we're making annual contributions to, so there's not any annual contribution built into this budget. At the end of 2024, there was just shy of 56,000 that was transferred as a general operating surplus. But there's not an amount that's sort of a dedicated transfer to reserve in the budget right now.
Okay, I guess my concern, and maybe it's WNES, maybe it's not, is as we move towards opening the new cell at Sturgeon Falls, like obviously there's some engineering charges this year, but is this the opening of the new cell is a project that will have considerable costs for the municipality?
Yes.
And how are we future planning for that?
Does crying and crawling under my desk count? No?
No, it doesn't. So I guess that's my question, is that if we're looking at opening a new cell and all of a sudden 2 years from now, you're going to come and say, by the way, we would like, $3.6 million. So I don't know how much it costs. I'm just throwing a number out there. Please, taxpayers, don't panic. It's a random number. I just want to know what we're doing to kind of plan for that large future expense that we know is coming sooner rather than later.
So we are still looking at a variety of options, and some of it depends that as the consultants manage kind of each stage as far as when we get costs, and we are planning on staging it out as well, but when we get sort of costs that move from being 30% complete cost to 70% complete cost, and as we get those from the consultant, we are evaluating, obviously looking for funding for things. Financing is going to be an option that's on the table as well. Partnerships are things that are being explored for that as well, in some sort of creative situations like that. Mr. Barbo, do you have?
No, all of the above. So, obviously it's planned to be done in stages. Obviously financing would be looked at. We have other priorities right now with respect to the municipality and where we're going after funds. But there's also an opportunity, without speaking of looking at potentially having a kind of a 3P issue as well. So those types of ideas will be coming to council with respect to perhaps having the suppliers that are offering recycling or what have you, because they contract out to local folks, and I won't name names, but you know who is out there providing land or services. And so we're looking at those options, and we have been approached by various companies to look at those types of things. So I think that we are probably going to have an acceptable solution.
Okay, thank you very much. If there were funding available, which ministries would that be through? Environment Conservation Parks or?
No, they just regulate us. They don't tend to throw money at us. They just tell us what to do. Obviously IO, Infrastructure Ontario would be the key for that. And there's also federal funds as well. There's FCM funding, and there's a variety of different things, but we're just not at that stage yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Councillor Gahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In regards to our dump trucks, how many do we have, and are there any that are due up for renewal or end of life?
So we don't have in this budget any of them. Zero. West Nipissing Environmental Services has, our contractor has, I believe, 4 or 5.
4?
4.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
2 larger ones and then the smaller ones.
But so this budget here, and this table here relies on WNES, and they are the provider of the service that they offer in Field and Springer and Sturgeon Falls, right? So, and Verner to a degree. They do Verner for recycling.
I have a follow-up question, Madam Chair. Do they have capital budget to recycle those trucks in their budget?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Questions or comments? So this budget will come back to us with the numbers to reflect River Valley and Kipling. So we are approving this one conditional, or are you just going to bring back a separate one at a future meeting?
If council is generally in agreement with this, then we would just bring an update with the accompanying resolutions.
Is everybody in favor of this budget where it stands currently? Back to you, Mr. King.
Councilor Nicol. Question for folks, we're at 7:52. We usually take a break at 8. Do we want to take a break a little bit early and then get back into the regular meeting and keep going? See a thumbs up. See some head. Seconder, Councillor Gagne. Councillor Larrabee.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Larrabee at 7:52 p.m. A motion was tabled for 10-minute recess.
All those in favor? That's carried. We'll see you all in 10 minutes. We're up. All right, welcome back, everyone. We will continue on with our agenda for this evening. What we have next is agenda item number 6, and we'll begin our regular meeting agenda. And that starts with our consent agenda.
It is moved by Councillor Pavilion and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that the consent agenda for the Council and Committee of the whole meeting of April the 15th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Any questions or comments on anything within the consent agenda? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Carried. Under 6.2 planning.
You're going to the second item, I guess?
Yeah, we've already.
Yeah, it is moved by Councillor Rivard and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-36, being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-45, to rezone certain lands located at 968 Stewart Road from rural RU to rural residential exception zone 6 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
As always, we have this information in our packages for review prior to the meeting. Open to any questions or comments from anyone. Not seeing any. All those in favor? It's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-37, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, to execute a subdivision agreement with West Nipissing Casa Development Limited, come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Same as the previous one. I'll open to any questions or comments. Seeing any. All those in favor? Carried.
New business.
And 6.4, new business.
It is moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Gagne. Be it resolved that Council hereby proclaims the week of April 27th to May 3rd as Volunteer Appreciation Week. You want me to read the proclamation? Whereas millions of Canadians generously devote their time to both formal and informal volunteering, contributing billions of volunteer hours each year, and whereas volunteers in the West Nipissing municipality mentor our children, beautify our green spaces, improve the experience of patients and clients, support those feeling isolated, advocate for a more equitable and inclusive society, fundraise for our charitable organizations, and the list goes on. And whereas municipality of West Nipissing is enriched by the diverse and dedicated volunteers comprising of families, individuals, workers, retirees, and community members of all ages and backgrounds, whose contribution makes our municipality a more desirable place to live, work, and visit. And whereas the Corporation of the West Nipissing Municipality is fortunate to have dedicated volunteers who play a vital role in strengthening our community. Be it therefore resolved that April 27th to May 3rd, 2025 be designated National Volunteer Appreciation Week in recognition of the dedicated volunteers in the West Nipissing Municipality.
Thank you for that. Mr. Shaw, any questions or comments on the proclamation? Seeing all those in favor? It's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Nicol. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-38, being a bylaw to set the tax ratios for the municipality of West Nipissing for the year 2025, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Councillor Rivard, question.
Sorry, I was, as you say, speed voting.
Okay, so we've had discussions around the tax ratios at previous meetings. Any questions or comments on those? All those in favor? It's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrand and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-39, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing to adopt the 2025 tax rates and to provide for penalty and interest payable, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Excellent. So like the ratios, we had discussions on these previously. We have the information on packages. Any questions or comments? Seeing any, all those in favor? That's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Whereas council has considered a non-union compensation report prepared by Pesce and Associates at its special meeting of February the 4th, 2025, and its meeting of April the 1st, 2025. And whereas council concurs with the recommendations for the non-union salary grid, be it resolved that council for the West Nipissing Municipality approves the proposed non-union salary grid.
Okay, as mentioned, we've had a couple of meetings on this, couple of discussions around. We've looked at the information. I'll open any questions or comments regarding those. See, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, sorry, I lost you for a second there. I would just like to make a motion to refer this back into closed session. At the last meeting, there were 3 members of council that did not have the information available to review with council, with staff, or ask any questions. And I would like to propose that that it be referred back so those councillors have an opportunity to review the information with staff and members of council.
There's a request to refer this back into closed session for further discussion. Need a seconder for that request, Councillor Fedin.
Okay, so motion on the floor to refer this item back to council.
Any questions related to the referral request? All those in favor? That's carried. So we'll bring that back at likely our next meeting in a closed session.
It is moved by Councillor Fedin, seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas council considered a compensation review for members of council prepared by Pesce and Associates at its meeting of March the 4th and April the 1st, 2025. And whereas council has agreed to a proposed increase in the remuneration for members of council at the 50th percentile shown in the report, which increase will take effect immediately. Be it resolved that council for the West Nipissing Municipality hereby accepts the proposed salary compensation grid at the 50th percentile, and be it further resolved that the salary increase for council will take effect immediately.
Questions or comments? Councillor.
Thank you. Je regarde ça, puis je suis déçu qu'on n'a pas eu les environs. C'est quoi les compensations comme Temagami, Marks Day Warren, French River, North Bay. Je suis déçu de ça. Je trouve qu'on, je vais répéter que c'est on savait dans quoi qu'on s'embarquait. De là, à partir d'aller à 27% de hausse de salaire, c'est tout. Merci.
For those comments, Councillor Fedin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will agree with Councillor Pavilion, and I wanted to state this at the meeting tonight. I'm also extremely disappointed, especially on that side of the report with regards to council compensation. We have only, 6 or 7 comparables. And I think you mentioned at a previous meeting, was it that, the answer wouldn't be that much different? Or was it one of the people who did the report? I forget. But anyway, it would have been easy to give us a much wider scope to look at. I mean, council compensation and mayoral compensation in Ontario is public record. I mean, you only need to Google what is the salary of the mayor of Kenora, whatever. And I think rather than just sending out a survey and merely publishing the answers that they got, if they would have made a little bit of effort, we would have had a much wider scope to look at. Having said that, I mean, I know that probably the answer would have been the same. In fact, I Googled a lot of municipalities about our size, and the answer seems to be coming back around the same figures. but it would have been more robust and it would have, in the eyes of the public, I think the report would have had more strength. I think, I'm not going to repeat the arguments. I know what the arguments for and against are. It's a very difficult question. I find it very difficult to decide. But I would like to propose an amendment. I know it's a close split and, maybe there is a way forward that we can all agree. I don't know if, maybe I would rather everyone speak before I propose my amendment, if anyone wants to speak on it.
Sure. Councillor Larrabee, Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The council went to the past me sitting here, took the decision to hire a consultant to review the salaries. The consultant came back with an answer. And to me, it's very simple. There's a lot of frustration going around that we see on the internet because of that. But maybe to eliminate that would be going forward, there should be a review maybe every 2 terms. Because right now, we haven't had a review like this. This is the first time that council orders a review. And that's why it's so much. We're looking at $3 per resident or $6.35 per home. This, what we're talking about, this raise of 27%. There's 15,500 resident and there's 7,500 registered land. So if you divide the total amount by that, you'll get those numbers. So, but to prevent that, we should look at having a revision every so often, because it's hard for somebody to give themselves a raise, but at the same time, it is definitely worth it, because I've seen months that I had to take some of my dollars to go and do the job, to do it properly. Like if I answer every second or third phone call, I wouldn't have no problem. But I take pride in what I do. I'm there, I look into it. And so this is definitely warranted. And I'm all for it, moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larrabee. Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll reiterate what I said the last time. I personally believe that, is there an increase that is warranted? Absolutely. I don't believe it should be now. I believe we should make that determination and it comes into effect at the next council and they can have that starting point. I don't believe the 50 percentile is where we should be at. I don't know if there's a difference where we can look at a 5% increase or an 8% increase. I do understand that we asked this company or these individuals to provide us with this information, which they did and they followed through with it. However, it doesn't mean that we have to follow, in my opinion. I too went online and I looked at other towns or other municipality of our size. Yes, we're above some, but we are below most. But I think increments and baby steps as opposed to a 50 percentile would be best. Like I said, whether it's 5% this year, 5% next year, whatnot, or for myself, like I said, I would rather see it start with the next council and they can move forward from there. Thank you.
Okay, for those comments, I'll go Councillor Nicola.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also would like to reiterate what I said at the last meetings. I would agree with 50th percentile, but start with the next term. So I would like to propose that amendment to make it start next term. Anybody else would be in favor of that? Thanks.
Okay, we'll park that. We'll come back to it. Let's give others an opportunity.
It's just procedurally, if somebody proposes an amendment, you have to deal with the amendment. I think so.
And I'm not sure whether there wasn't another amendment proposed over at this Or a little bit
So
different?
typically procedurally is when there's an amendment, you see if there's a seconder and then you vote on the amendment. And then if not, then you debate the amendment. And then basically if it's carried, then the resolution. And if there's another proposal for another amendment, then, you deal with that first and then you, as amended, and then you would vote for it. So that's typically how amendments take place.
Well, I don't want to break the rules, so they won't let me do this job again, so let's follow the rules.
So I just want to clarify, Councillor St. Louis, were you proposing an amendment?
No, I was just stating my mind. He wanted to propose an amendment, but wanted to let people speak first.
But I think your amendment needs to be dealt with if that's your position.
So shall I propose my amendment? Thank you. I would propose that it is implemented in 3 tranches on 3 consecutive years. The first in 2026, the second in 2027, and the third in 2028. That will give the next council the chance, the next council can decide to leave it as is or to repeal it. But it will become part of the conversation during the next election campaign, and the people of this table will have a mandate. And they will have made their position clear to the electorate, and they'll be elected on that basis, and they'll come and sit at this table with a mandate. And I think that people will respect that decision on that basis. So that's my amendment, my proposed amendment.
Can I have a seconder to Councillor Fadin's amendment? No seconder?
My hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand, Councillor Nicol. So there is a proposed amendment on the floor. For clarity, the increase would still be at the 50th percentile, but to be implemented over a 3-year. Okay. So there's an amendment on the floor to,
Commencing in 2026.
yeah, commencing 2026 to 2028.
Any comments on that proposed or proposed amendment? So Pellerin.
I would not support this. I'd support the idea, but not at the 50th percentile. I'd rather go with what Mr. Sayer was saying, something a little lower.
Okay. So just respectfully, we can only discuss what's being tabled as the proposed amendment. So just any other comments on that, as was read by Madam Duchamp? No comments? All those in favor of the amended resolution? See 2, so that will not move forward.
We're back to the original resolution.
To the original resolution. Any other comments on the original resolution? Your amendment?
I take it back because I liked his.
Are you gonna amend? Are you
Yes.
Can I share before we hear, or I don't know what the procedure usually
Well,
is.
you're chairing, so if you recognize him and he proposes an amendment, then you deal with it. If you don't recognize him and you want to share prior to recognizing him, then you're at
I'll
the
stand in front of him.
I'm not gonna get asked to do this again. I just wanted to share, and then I'll vote you if that's okay. I don't want, that's fine, go vote a turn, but I just wanted to share a couple things to clarify some of the work that's being done here. I know through some of the information that we receive online, I'm a big stickler for words and proper terminology. Council isn't proposing their own raise here. We went through a process where we engaged a third party, independent of council. We gave them instructions to go out, receive information, put this together and bring it back to us for consideration as part of a compensation review, not a salary review or an increase or a raise. It was part of a broader compensation review. We also looked, as we're aware, at insurance, life insurance. We looked at benefits for ourselves as part of that overall compensation view. It's never been done. I know, again, terminology online, there's some folks saying certain people said we haven't had a raise in X number of years. This isn't a raise, it's a compensation review is what the actual activity is. And part of that was looking at the salaries that we have while we're here doing work on behalf of the municipality. So it's just, I just wanted to clarify that because it is important. There are two separate processes. We all have worked or retired or whatnot, and we've gotten raises in our work based on performance and whatnot. That's not what this was. This was a compensation review. They're different animals, but I just wanted to clarify that. And we did do the right process in my mind. We went out, we hired a consultant. I'm repeating myself a bit, but they went out, got the info, brought it back to us. We had a number of meetings to discuss the information and decide how we wanted to move forward. So it wasn't something done internally, which would have been the wrong way to do this. So I think for the process, it was pretty well done. So I just wanted to share those points because I think it's important for those watching online, for those who comment online. We did this, I believe, in the right way. We didn't sit around and say, let's give ourselves a raise and this is what we want. And I also just wanted to comment, and this is just on myself, I'm not sure how other folks were, but I know there's a lot of online chatter, people who sit behind their keyboards and send out messages, and that's fine, respectful for whatever they want to do. I got one contact on this issue from a resident, and we sat down, we talked, we went through a bunch of different ideas, and we thought about different things. We talked about how the process was. So to those folks online who are watching, who will be watching, if you want to influence things, reach out. Because this is my opinion, when you put something on Facebook that's not reaching out, that's part of the process that doesn't engage. So just something to consider. I'll stop there. I had something else, but I'm getting older and I lost the thought. So I'll go over to Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would like to propose an amendment to what we've received. You speak about the online. I don't look at it very much. My thought on this has nothing to do with that. I made it clear even before. So I would like to amend it. As much as I would like to go with the percent, I know probably it's going to be no. So I would like to amend it that at the very least it starts at the next term.
Seconder to. So there's a motion on the floor. I need a seconder to Councillor St. Louis' proposed motion. So there is a secondary motion on the floor to amend this resolution such that the salary increase would take effect at the beginning of the 2026 council term.
Any comments specific to that proposal, Councillor Pellerin?
But at what percentage?
I will say the 50th percentile because if I know if I go lower, it's not going to go.
Then I will withdraw my,
We haven't voted yet.
Second.
Oh, the second. But it's for-
Okay, so it is moved by Councillor St. Louis and seconded by Councillor Nicol that the motion be amended such that the salary increase for council would take effect at the beginning of the 2026 council term.
I don't think there's any other comments that weren't previously, so all those in favor of the proposed amendment to the resolution? 3, 4. So that's defeated, correct?
We're back to the original
So we're back to
resolution.
the original. Any other comments on the original resolution? I remember what I was going to say, share my other comment. I'll go to Madam Mayor first.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just go what you said, in the original step report that we received in October of 2023, which is how long we've been exploring this particular issue. it was referenced that under the Municipal Act, members of council do have the legislated responsibility to review council compensation as required. And as you mentioned, there has never been one done by the municipalities. So I just like to echo what you said, that the process that's been followed by this council has been appropriate as far as having a third party provide the recommendations and do the examination and come back with what their findings were according to the market that's out there. And that that was the advice that we've received from staff, and we followed the process since October 2023 to get to this point. The only other thing I would mention in regards to that is that the discussion continued earlier in 2024, where the RFP was awarded by a resolution of council to have that work undertaken by a third party consultant. And then additionally, this was discussed during our budgeting process in November and December of this year. And council will recall that there was an increase in the mayor and council budget that was presented to us and approved by council that accounted for the expected recommendations that were to come in, because it had been identified, first of all, that when the tax-free status was revoked by the federal government on council compensation in 2018, West Nipissing was one of the municipalities that never made adjustments to councillors' salaries to account for the loss in take-home pay. And it had also been discussed late in the term in 2020, the last term of council in 2023, with research done by internally by a member of council that had identified that the salaries for West Nipissing, or compensation for West Nipissing Council, was out of line with competitors at that time, which is now almost 3 years ago that discussion happened. So the increase that we're looking at now has actually already been approved in the 2025 budget, and those would be my comments on the topic. Thank you.
Mayor, Council Pavilion.
Thank you, Mrs. Chair. I've got a question for Mr. Murdoch. We were told that there was no increase in salary for council for the last 15, 20 years. I'm not sure. Was there an increase in salaries for council in the last few years?
There was a policy adopted in 2007 that started in 2008 that provided for a CPI adjustment to council's compensation. So not ever a compensation adjustment like this, but there has been a CPI increase applied annually since 2008.
So the CPI is what the percentage, what does CPI mean?
Oh, so CPI is that consumer price index, and it is that representative of what inflationary pressures are. And so it is sort of that analysis of a basket of goods today versus a basket of goods the next year. And the policy speaks to the CPI rate in November of the preceding year, and that's what the adjustment has been over time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any comments, final comments on the original resolution that's before us? Before we go to vote? Reread it just to for clarity.
Be it resolved that council for the West Nipissing municipality hereby accepts the proposed salary compensation grid at the 50th percentile, and be it further resolved that the salary increase for council will take effect immediately.
Mr. Chair, can we have a recorded vote?
So I call them out in alphabetical order. Okay, Councillor Gagne.
Yes.
Councillor Larrabee.
Yes.
Councillor Nickel.
No.
Councillor Pellerin.
No.
Councillor Ferrin.
No.
Councillor Restoul.
Yes.
Sorry, I should have called you last. Councillor Rivard.
Yes.
Councillor St. Louis.
No.
Mayor Rochon. That a yes? I can't hear you.
Muted.
Yes.
It is passed.
Thanks, everyone, for that, for all the ideas shared in the discussion. Thank you. Very important piece. All, I think, understand the importance of the decision. Next item for another important decision the municipality will be making in the near future.
Moved by Councillor Larrabee, seconded by Councillor Ferrin. Be it resolved, the following members of council be appointed to an ad hoc committee for the purpose of selection of a new chief administrative officer. Mayor Kathleen Thorne-Rochon, Councillor Gagne, Councillor Ferrin, and Councillor St. Louis. Councillor St. Louis.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments on that? I just wanted to share a quick comment, and just for those watching at home, I appreciate the leadership of our mayor, who included the opportunity for everybody to be involved in this and having a discussion or a decision-making process where we are all involved. So appreciate that, transparency from the mayor and all of us in determining who would sit on this committee. I will. No other comments? Comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do also agree with the choice that Madam Mayor chose for this procedure, and wish all of them good luck in filling the CAO shoes.
Shoes to fill for sure. Appreciate those comments. All those in favor of the resolution? That is carried.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrin, seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Whereas the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club is requesting to use the Cache Bay Community Centre free of charge in order to host their annual fishing derby on May the 24th, 2025. And whereas Council supports the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club's initiatives, be it resolved that the use of the Cache Bay Community Centre will be at no charge for the Sturgeon Falls Rod and Gun Club to host their event, which shall be coordinated with the Community Services Department.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on that? Seeing any, all those in favor? That's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Ferrin. Whereas Councillor Larrabee is requesting permission to attend the AMO conference in August, and whereas Councillor Larrabee has previously attended the Roma and OGRA conferences this year, and whereas Policy 1999-131 as amended requires council authorization to attend any conference or seminar that should exceed the individual allotment of 2. Be it resolved that Councillor Larrabee be authorized to attend one additional conference to attend the AMO conference in August 2025 in Ottawa.
Questions or comments on that resolution? So Larrabee.
Thank you. I made the request for this. It was usually accepted previous council. The funds are there already allocated. If anyone doesn't go twice a year, then the money is there for a person that would need to go, which in this case I do need to speak with the Minister of MTO, because at this time, the way that they've done great work with their highway in River Valley, but the problem is the ditching is that needs to be resolved, because this is destroying our businesses in River. So it needs to be improved. Either catch basins or refill the ditches with big rocks so water could flow through. It's an easy fix, but it needs to be fixed. So this is why I'm requesting support from council. I can speak with the minister.
Thanks for that information. Any other questions, comments? Councilor Rivard?
Thank you. Through you. Just my question would be, like, when I go to these conferences, I don't believe I can just go speak to any minister as I wish. So
you ask for delegation.
Yeah, so I believe that was the reason why the 2 previous conferences have been attended by yourself, but it didn't really, I just don't see why we can't maybe try and see if staff can reach out to the MTO to see if this could be something that could be resolved, because it is a kind of like within our municipality, and it would just be simpler. It would fall within our procedural bylaw. Staff could kind of do what, like, there's a chance that you go and we still can't receive that delegation, if you know what
Well,
I'm
if,
getting at there.
Or if,
Yeah, because it's kind of a.
if I may, if make a request and there is no delegation because we're playing at their mercy. The reason I'm asking now is because I can book the rooms and, you know, there is rooms available. But if I wait at the last minute to do it, then there's no rooms. It's hard to get in. But we know at the last minute, if we do get the delegation, which about 2 weeks prior, so that way I could cancel. If I don't get the delegate, we'll ask for delegation. If I don't get it, nothing for me to cancel it, you know? But at least if I get a chance to speak with the minister, because all the improvement that we've seen in our area, which from Field to River Valley, and then from River Valley to Warren, is through, and replacing the bridge in 2015, is through attending, speaking with the minister. All the improvement.
I guess just to follow up, my reasoning was just like, I believe the mayor was going, and I believe Councillor Fayette also mentioned that, like, we do have representation who could still kind of pursue those delegations if we are approved. It was just my comment that I'd like to make, and thanks for answering though.
Hello?
Thanks for answering.
So I think just before us is just a request and following what we have as a policy and bringing the request forward. And that's what's in front of us is the requested action through this resolution. So any other comments on the resolution itself? So all those in favor of the request from Councillor Larrabee? Passed. Carried, sorry.
It is moved by Councillor Ferran and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that Council for the West Nipissing Municipality endorses the River and Sky Music and Camping Festival taking place at Fisher's Paradise, July 23rd to 27th, 2025.
Any questions or comments on the request?
Thank you. Again, River and Sky has been actively doing their thing on a yearly basis, sometimes quite a few times during the year. It's great for the economy. It's bringing lots of people in the area. They shop at the store in Field, they shop at the store in River Valley. It brings in thousands of dollars in our area. So I would definitely support this 100%. There's also another event going on. It's the River Valley Bluegrass Festival. And this brings in thousands of dollars in the area. So.
Awesome. So we may receive something in the future from that event. We'll wait for that. But I know for this, what we have in front of us under this resolution, any other questions, comments? All those in favor of supporting the resolution? That's carried. Okay, so I did this last time too. I'll definitely respect the position. I'll ask if Madam Mayor has anything that she'd like to share under the mayor's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. At this time, I won't, but I am looking forward at our next meeting when I'm back in person to share at a little bit more length the work that I'm doing here this week with Lynn Perot from the Alliance Center, and I will have a lot to report back to council. So I don't want to hear anything at the next meeting about how I shouldn't talk so much, because I will have a lot to say. I'll make up for lost time next meeting, please. So with that, thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Deputy Mayor Joel, for filling my shoes while I'm away. And I do truly appreciate it. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If it's okay, I just wanted to add one quick item because I know we all have lots of time to spare this evening. So important event within the community I just wanted to share. Today there was a launch of a fundraiser with the West Nipissing General Hospital with their mammography unit that they have. We know that it definitely impacts a lot of our community members, and with the age of mammography exams going down, decision by government. There's going to be an increase for the services within the community, and just, as a little information piece, although we all think that the province is responsible for health, and they are to some degree when it comes to equipment within the hospitals, they're not necessarily responsible for those. So it does fall in the community to support our local hospital and raise funds for needed equipment like this. It's fairly, the goal is $475,000 to replace this piece of equipment. But I just wanted to share that we have a great organization within the community, the Case Alliance, and they've stepped forward in a big way to help kickstart this. And they've provided a $75,000 donation to start. And it's called Our Community, Our Health, Our Future, and Double Your Impact with Case Alliance. So the $75,000 is their first donation, and they've also earmarked another $25,000 that they're going to be matching for the next $25,000 that comes in. So the total support is $100,000 to that $475,000. And there's a lot of events that have taken place in the recent history. We've had the Shamrock event, we've had a Scotch nosing at the curling club, which have raised funds. But I just wanted to share that. You're going to see a lot more in the community with events that are happening. It's something that's a little bit close to my heart, losing my mom last year to cancer. But when anything we can do as a community to help support our local health facility here, we're fortunate to have a hospital here right in West Nipissing. So just put that in everybody's ear. You're going to see a lot of new stuff coming out. And again, leaning on the volunteer week and fundraising initiatives that our volunteers are responsible for, take responsibility for. I thought it would be good to give a little plug to our local hospital and the big fundraising that they have for this very expensive piece of equipment. So thank you all for indulging my comments, and that's it for the Deputy Mayor's report.
Moved by Councillor Larrabee and seconded by Councillor Ferrand. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2025-40, being a bylaw of the municipality of West Nipissing, confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on April 15th, 2025, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
All those in favor? It's carried.
It is moved by Councillor Ferrand, seconded by Councillor Larrabee. Be it resolved that the council and committee of the whole meeting held on April 15th be adjourned.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Have a good evening, Madam Mayor, and have a good evening, everybody.